afternoon. My name is Joseph Lloyd and I source cars for people on a professional basis, hence the name of my channel, Lloyd Vehicle Consulting. 4 years ago, I was asked to come up with a series of videos that were filmed inexpensively. We don't use digital cameras, we don't use fluid head tripods, we don't use shotgun microphones, we wear tatty shirts, we just use a phone. But we look at cars that you can buy for a budget up to £1,000 only, and we very much enjoy ourselves. These are cars that might be in cosmetically bad condition. You might see oil leaks, rattly dashboards and cosmetic imperfections, but we go all over the country and we find these very inexpensive cars that you all seem to enjoy watching. I can't really remember the last time I saw one of these viewers. This is a 1994 Toyota Carina E 1.6 CD. It's from the sort of first revision after these cars came out in 1992. And the CD doesn't really mean it's very luxurious, which I assumed it literally meant. We've not got air conditioning or electric mirrors in this. It just means you get a CD player, I think, because that's what it's got. The wheel trims are actually aftermarket ones. It's not the original ones. The owner actually does have them, but for some reason, when he bought the car, the original ones wouldn't fit on, so he's had to leave the aftermarket ones on. You're pleased to know that we're within no budget reviews territory, because this car cost £800 when the owner picked it up, so that's good, I suppose. We'll have a look in the boot first. It's got quite a good boot on it. We won't use the interior release because that's a little bit finicky. We'll just use the key, which is here. Classic kind of older Japanese style, although this car would have been built in Derbyshire. Let's try that again. There we go. It's quite a stiff hatch to push up this. It's a very big hatch. And look at the size of this. Absolutely loads and loads of room. People kind of go on about like how you don't really need an SUV, and certainly back in the 1990s, SUVs were around. Toyota were one of the first sort of RAV4 that came out just after this car was made. But look at the size of this, for all the odds and ends you could possibly ever imagine. You could also get a saloon and an estate, and there is a very appropriate manual there, just sitting and waiting for use. Lift up this carpet, we can see we've got a full-size spare in there, which is really good. The only thing I would say about this is the lip is quite deep, so hauling stuff in and out of there might be a problem. But I suppose if it's a real issue, you could just buy the estate. This car's actually got the original dealer plates on it, original dealer sticker, which I think is great. The CD model was introduced around the time that this car was registered in 1994. This wasn't available on the initial range that came out. Like the car Mr. Richardson on Furious Driving drove, that was from the sort of early trim lineup. I think it's a 93 and an absolute base model. This one has got a bit more equipment on it. It's got electric windows, actually all-round electric windows. Oh, a road atlas. Gosh, I haven't seen one of those in a while. And some very, very, very garish wood trim. I asked Alfie, who owns this car, if that was original, and apparently that actually is original. What's really strange about this car is that the passenger window switch doesn't look anything like the driver's window switches at all. It looks nothing like it, which is odd. But there we go. What's so really odd about this car, and I've only really seen this on a Carina E, is the gear lever gaiter. It sort of flops all the way down here. Normally they're a lot higher, but all of them I've seen have been like that. 5-speed manual on this, you could get an auto. Also, although this car is British made, it's definitely feeling very Japanese in here. Hard plastic dash, typical kind of 1990s radio, or doubled in actually on this. You could put obviously a new radio if you wanted to, but we've got the CD model, so we have a CD and tape player. And the indicator stalks on the right rather than the left, which is what you'd sort of expect, but never mind. Very typical 1990s interior trim, quite comfortable. I've driven this car for a few minutes, and yeah, it's comfortable enough. Driving position's got no hidden surprises or anything in it. Handbrake is really close to actually where the driver is, which is handy. We've got ashtray here. That's not really sort of damp though, is it? I don't know why I'm expecting things like soft touch dashes and damp dash trays, but you know, maybe in your fleet car in the 1990s you didn't need such things. We've got a nice electric sunroof, which I'm not going to touch because you know what I'm like, viewers with sunroofs on old cars. We might see if we can get my secret mission documents in there, because we might be able to. And of course, you all remember this, the car in front is a Toyota. I remember that from my youth, actually. So, just typical kind of sort of early 90s Japanese, you know, not the nicest sort of feeling materials, but then again, it all looks very robust. This car's almost 30 years old and there's nothing broken or anything in here, so just because something looks kind of a bit sort of cheap doesn't necessarily mean it is. So this one's got an airbag. The very early cars didn't have an airbag and didn't have ABS. Those sort of came a bit later. If we get in the back, one thing I've been very curious about with the Carina E is compared with the later Adventures that replaced it, I've always thought the doors are sort of virtually the same and the body shell is very similar. In other parts of the world, this car was known as the Toyota Corona, the T190 generation of Corona. So yeah, we've got perfectly adequate space in here. There's not quite as much as I thought there would be, but it's fine. It's a bit bigger than, say, a Mitsubishi Galant, like the one you would have seen in the second-hand classics, which was made a little bit before these. I think those discontinued about the same year that these came in. But yeah, it's certainly massively improved the lighting in here by having this sunroof. We've actually got a rear courtesy light in here as well. That's pretty good. We don't have a central armrest. Probably on one of the higher specs you probably get that. And again, the doors have these really kind of old-fashioned and very cheap feeling switches on them. The driver gets a sort of full bank of them over there, which is nice. But yeah, you know, we've got family in here, I should think. I am brushing the headliner with my hair, but you know, it's okay for anybody. I'm just under 6 foot, about 5'11". So if you're under 6 foot, it's not a problem really. But from that, there's not, honestly, an awful lot to say. Which is probably a good thing in a way, because most people who are buying a car for the family don't necessarily need something that's complicated or fancy. They just need something to sort of get around in and get children to school and go to work. And actually, these cars would have done really well. They were used as taxis in many parts of the world as well. Let's have a look under the bonnet, shall we? As far as I understand it, this engine develops around 105 horsepower. The later cars from about 1996 actually only developed 92 horsepower. And the 1.8, which then sort of, I suppose, replaced this power output, that had around the same, maybe like 107 or something. So pretty easy to work on. These are a cam belt engine, so this has been done, which is sensible. It's very similar actually to the engine that was in the Toyota Carina 2 that we had on No Budget Reviews, I think back in about 2021. I forget sometimes with some of the years. I've done so many episodes of No Budget Reviews now, like was 150 or something, so sometimes I can't remember, but that was without the fuel injection, 4.8F. This is an FE. They're very, very dependable engines, these. Classic kind of little misting of oil from where there's been historic cam cover gasket leak with this, but that's really common for 1990s Japanese engines. It's nothing to worry about really, if you can get that done. Distributor on there, Actually, like a Honda D series engine, the gearbox is on the right hand side. But no, sorry, the gearbox is actually on the side that's normal. The Honda D series is on the other side. So this turns the way the majority of the sort of European overhead cam engines do. Yeah, it looks reasonably easy to work and stuff. You've got to watch that exhaust manifold, which you get absolutely red hot. But you know, for the sort of money that was paid for this car, there's not hardly any rust on it. Just a bit of surface down here, which is good because a lot of them did rust out. This one somehow has survived, which is remarkable. Maybe I can share it with all of you on my channel. Anyway, I think it's time to go for a drive, viewers. Not again. The impression of driving this car is one of real sort of smoothness and ease. The only thing is, and this might be that this car needs kind of adjustment to the throttle cable or something like that, or it might just be a characteristic of this lean burn engine. The throttle seems to have a lot more sort of resistance in it when you're at light throttle inputs. When you push it a bit harder, the throttle does become a bit lighter, but when you're just driving around normally, the throttle is a lot heavier than you imagine. I don't really know why that is. It could be one thing, it could be another. Sorry. As I just found out when pulling out of a junction, you can spin the tyres quite easily because you just get nothing. And then suddenly it just sort of kicks in and off you go. So it's not the easiest car necessarily to get out of junctions because the throttle just sort of stiffens up and you have to actually push it beyond the point of resistance for it actually to make progress and you don't stall, which means that actually driving it smoothly at lower speeds is a little bit difficult. The steering, it feels kind of sort of unresponsive really. It's fine, it's just compared to something like a P10 Primera, there's just no feedback to it at all. It's perfectly light and everything like that, it's easy, but there's no precision to it really at all. I mean, you might just sort of argue that you don't need anything like that. You don't require kind of precision in your steering in your family car, but you know, something like a Mark II Mondeo or Mark 1, which is similar in that way, P10, P11 Primera, which I have also driven, they just have a much nicer steering unit. This doesn't really reward any kind of sort of vigorous input. The engines available in a Toyota Carina E were a 1.6, first of all with 105 horsepower, later 92 horsepower, which is a big decrease. 1.8 with 107 horsepower, later 103 horsepower, a 2 litre 131 horsepower, and then the 2 litre for the GTI model, that started off at 155 horsepower and was later increased to 173 horsepower. There are also some diesels available, but as usual, due to controversial government legislation and all kinds of other reasons, we don't talk about diesels on this channel. What we do talk about is the fact that this car just feels like it will just keep going. Once you get past this really strange issue with the throttle, there's no sort of hidden surprise with this. The gearbox is nice and smooth, the engine's actually pretty willing, makes a good noise, and the seat's nice and comfortable. It's actually a better seat than the P11 Primera. It is on the firm side, but it's better. I think you've got adjustable lumbar support in this as well, which is good. The exhaust actually makes quite a good noise as well. It reminds me of the good old 4AGE engine that was in the A86 Toyota Corolla. It sort of has a reminiscent noise of that, and you know, that's the kind of thing that we like on this channel. It's very, very much. I just kind of wish it handled like one of those A86 Corollas, but you kind of don't, can you? Lloyd Vehicle Consulting stickers, t-shirts and mugs are available by clicking the link to the Google form in the video description below. Like cassette storage solutions on this channel, viewers. Let's now look at some Toyota Carina E trim levels. When the car was released in 1992, the trim levels were XI, XLI, GLI, GTI and Executive. Some people have said that was an SLI trim in addition to those, but I can't find any evidence of that apart from one particular source, so I'm going to say that didn't exist. When there were revisions in 1994 where the cars got airbags, although dual airbags and ABS didn't come till the facelift in 1996, the CD trim was introduced, but I'm not quite sure where that fitted in the lineup and what it would have replaced. In 1996, the trim levels were changed to S, GS, CD, CDX and QDOS. The Carina E was known by other names in other parts of the world. The Corona T190, I think the last generation of that Corona in that sort of lineage. The Caldina was the estate model, and they're actually built in quite a few places. For our market, the factory at Burniston, Derbyshire, came on stream in late 1992, so the very early ones of these were imported from Japan. It's also made in Indonesia, Thailand, New Zealand, the Philippines and Taiwan, but generally with the Corona name. The Corona had slightly different bodywork from this. So viewers, should you consider a Toyota Carina E with your hard-earned budget up to £1,000? Well, I think the biggest problem is going to be finding one of these. A lot of them have just rusted away. They don't really have the same classic appeal as, you know, even like a P10 Nissan Primera does, I don't think. P10 is certainly better to drive than this, and a bit more of a characterful car. This, I don't know. Toyota was saying that Carina E stood for excellence in Europe, and yes, in terms of durability, sure, that they're excellent cars, but I'm not sure they've got the degree of personality that some of the other rivals for this car would have done, such as like a Mondeo. That's got a bit more sort of personality than this car does, even if it's all relative. Anyway, thank you ever so much indeed once again for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video and comment below, and we shall see you again soon for more inexpensive motoring.